Every murder tells two stories. One is written in evidence, crime scenes, timelines, and verdicts. The other lives in the mind, where obsession takes root, where resentment grows, and where one moment changes everything. This is Murder Mindset, a true crime podcast that goes beyond what happened to uncover why it happened. I'm Kelsey Coffey, and in this episode, we step inside the psychology, the relationships, and the warning signs that led to a deadly outcome. Because understanding the mindset is the first step toward understanding the crime.
I want to start this episode with a content warning. We'll be discussing family violence, financial manipulation, parental abuse. Listener discretion is strongly advised. It's 6 p.m. on Easter Sunday, March 30th, 1975, in a modest two-story home at 635 Minor Avenue in Hamilton, Ohio. Inside, the afternoon has been filled with laughter. Children hunting for Easter eggs on the front lawn, their voices mixing with the Midwest spring air. Adults have gathered for a joyful family dinner. A skillet of hamburger helper sits on the stove, waiting to be served. The holiday feels normal, safe, unremarkable, in exactly 5 minutes. That will change forever. From upstairs, methodical footsteps descend. A man emerges carrying 4 firearms. A .357 Magnum, 2 .22 caliber pistols, and a rifle. His hands are steady. His breath is measured. He has practiced for this. He reaches the kitchen. He props the rifle against the refrigerator with the precision of a man who knows exactly what he's doing. Then he raises the .357 Magnum, levels it at the first person he sees, and pulls the trigger. The sound echoes through the small house. When the police finally arrive, 3 hours later, they will find 11 bodies arranged across 2 rooms, each victim shot with brutal efficiency. The only sign of resistance is one overturned waste paper basket. This is the story of the Easter Sunday Massacre, one of the deadliest mass shootings in a private American home. The man who pulled the trigger was not a stranger breaking in through a window. He was not a criminal hiding in the neighborhood. He was James Rupert, a 41-year-old draftsman who lived upstairs with his mother. He killed his own brother, his sister-in-law, and his 8 nieces and nephews who had come to celebrate a holiday. I'm Kelsey Coffey, and this is Murder Mindset. What we're trying to understand today is not whether James Rupert killed these people. He did, without question. What we need to understand is why. Was this a calculated murder for money? A scheme to inherit $250,000? Or was this the eruption of a man whose mind had fractured under decades of family pressure, financial failure, and untreated mental illness? The answer, as with so many true crime cases, lies somewhere in the terrifying intersection of both. And today, we're going to piece it all together. From the first moments of James Rupert's troubled life, to the moment he put his hand on that trigger. Let me take you back to the Rupert family of Hamilton, Ohio, a working-class neighborhood about 30 miles outside Cincinnati. To understand why this massacre would happen on Easter 1975, we first need to understand the people who died that day. They were beloved family members, children with futures, a brother and a sister-in-law with a full house and limited means. They were ordinary Americans who walked into what they believed was a safe space and never walked out again. Charity Rupert, James's mother, was 65 years old on that Easter morning. Her neighbors described her as a devout Catholic who attended Mass every day without exception. She raised her 2 sons in a strict household, governed by rules and rituals. There was little room for negotiation. little room for a child to simply be a child. When her husband Leonard died of tuberculosis when James was only 12, the family's circumstances grew tighter, harder, more desperate. Charity had to work to support her sons. She had to enforce discipline. She had to be both mother and father. By the time she reached her 60s, living with her youngest son who couldn't hold a job, she had grown tired. Tired of the excuses, tired of the drinking, tired of supporting an adult man who refused to be independent, but she loved him. Even in her exhaustion, she was still his mother. Leonard Rupert Jr., 42, a stable man with a stable job and a tight-knit family. He and his wife Alma had built a life together, 8 children ranging in age from 4 to 17. By all accounts, Leonard was the responsible one, the son who had succeeded where his younger brother had struggled. He had a wife who loved him, children who knew his voice, a routine that anchored him. He worked hard, he provided, he came to his mother's house on Easter, not to judge his brother, but to celebrate. That choice, that ordinary family choice to gather on a holiday, cost him everything. Alma Rupert, Leonard's wife, was 38. She had dated James before she married Leonard, and some corners of the Rupert family circle carried subtle tensions about that history. But Alma had built a life with Leonard, and they had 8 children together. She was the mother of that brood, the mother who packed their Easter clothes and loaded them into the van for the drive to Billy's house. Her oldest children were teenagers. The youngest, John, was only 4, young to understand why his relatives were gathering, old enough to run and laugh on the front lawn hunting for colored eggs. Teresa was 9, and David was 11. In that sweet middle ground of childhood where the world still feels full of possibility. Carol was 13, and girls on the cusp of adolescence, discovering themselves, dreaming about what their lives would become. Thomas was 15, and Michael was 16. Old enough to be trusted with the younger siblings, old enough to notice the adults' tensions and moods. Leonard III, the eldest at 17, carried the weight of being the oldest grandson, the one who might have a special relationship with his uncle, who might run interference when adults fought. Hamilton, Ohio, where these children and their parents lived, was a town in transition. Once the factories had boomed and the working-class families like the Ruperts had built stable lives, but by 1975, those factories had begun to slow and shut. The town was struggling, poverty was creeping in, and yet the Rupert family gatherings continued. They show up, they eat together, they try to maintain connection, even when the world around them is fragmenting. The home at 635 Minor Avenue was modest but maintained. It was the kind of neighborhood where children could play outside, where neighbors knew each other's names, where holidays still meant something. This family, Charity, Leonard, Alma, and 8 children ranging from 4 to 17, was not a family in crisis that anyone could have predicted would end in violence. They were a family doing their best in difficult circumstances. They were people who deserved to grow old, to graduate, to grow, to fall in love, to build their own families. They were people who had futures. The tragedy is no one saw it coming. The greater tragedy is that, in retrospect, there were so many warning signs. To understand what led to that Easter Sunday in 1975, we have to trace the relationship between James Rupert and the family members he would kill. These relationships were complex, layered with childhood injuries, financial entanglement, and what psychiatrists would later describe as paranoid delusions. They began with a father's death and a mother's grief. James Urban Rupert was born March 29, 1934, to Leonard and Charity Rupert. He was a sickly child, suffering from severe bronchial asthma that began when he was only 2. In Hamilton's cold, damp Midwest climate, his condition worsened dramatically. He wheezed through the night, woke gasping for air, missed school because of doctor's visits and treatments. He couldn't participate in sports or physical education. Other children didn't understand why he couldn't run and play. James became isolated, awkward, and convinced from a very young age that he was weak and worthless, a belief his father reinforced repeatedly. Leonard Sr. was a harsh man who told young James that he would never hold a job, he would never live independently, and never amount to anything. Those words carved themselves into a child's psyche. When Leonard Sr. died of tuberculosis when James was 12, the damage was already done. James didn't lose a father who might have changed. He lost the only man in the household who could have balanced his mother's controlling rigidity. Charity Rupert, left to raise two sons alone in a struggling economy, responded to her circumstances by tightening her grip on everything she could control. There were rules, there were rituals, there was daily mass. There was no room for a boy to develop his own identity. No space to make mistakes or learn from them. Leonard Jr. became the man of the house almost overnight. Responsible, careful, mature beyond his years. James, the younger, sickly, and increasingly resentful.
What you've heard today is more than a crime story. It's a reminder of how quickly emotion can turn fatal and how often the warning signs go unseen. If you or someone you know is experiencing violence, coercion, or emotional abuse, help is available and reaching out can save lives. To support the podcast, visit patreon.com/murdermindset. I'm Kelsey Coffey, and until next time, lock your doors, bolt your windows, and beware the dangers hiding in plain sight.